and welcome to the Plenty of Positivity podcast. I am your host, Courtney Beck, and today we have Clint Pulver. Clint is an Emmy award-winning motivational keynote speaker, author, workforce expert, musician, and professional helicopter pilot. It is my absolute pleasure and honor to welcome Clint Pulver.
Thanks, Courtney. Great to be here.
Clint, I am so excited for this podcast episode. I have to let our listeners know. So, I met Clint at a conference recently that my husband and I attended. And I must say, Clint, it's not just the speaking, but you provide your audience an experience.
Thank you. Yeah, it was fun. That was a fun event. That's what it's about. It's not just a keynote. It's an experience for sure. You nailed it.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead. Let's go start with maybe your introduction and background, and then we'll dive into all of the fun, like I said, all of these titles that you hold.
Yeah. So I've been a professional speaker for 8 years full time now, and travel the world speaking to organizations on how to create teams and dynamics and cultures that people never want to leave. And it's been an amazing journey, and I've loved it. I've been a professional drummer for a long time, and yeah, being a dad and a husband's the most important thing in my life, and have 3 little kiddos at home, and they're the best. I love it. So
That is so exciting. So, I would love to take it back to the very beginning. You mentioned a gentleman by the name of Mr. Jenson. So,
yeah.
could you maybe provide our listeners just insight as to who Mr. Jenson was and the impact that he would have on your life?
So as a little kid, I struggled to sit still. I still have a hard time sitting still, and I would constantly tap, would constantly hit things, would be moving nonstop, and I got nicknamed the Twitcher, the Tapper, because I just couldn't sit still. And eventually, it got to the point where I got sent to the principal's office. My parents were notified. It was just a thing that, especially when I just tried to focus, I just would move constantly. And my teacher, his name was Mr. Jenson, he kind of yelled at me at class one day, and he said, "Clint, I need you to stay after, and we're going to talk. We're going to have a conversation." And I remember thinking, this is it. Like, I'm getting kicked out of school as a 10-year-old. Like, this is the end of the road for me. And the bell rang, class dismissed, everybody leaves. And it was just an empty room minus me and Mr. Jenson. And he pulled me to the back, and he looked at me and he said, "Listen, you tap a lot,
Mhm.
Clint. You're constantly doing that. You tap in my class, you tap in everybody else's. And I know you're kind of on the list with other teachers. You're on the list with the principal. The other kids tease you." He said, "But I've watched you though, and it's crazy. You take a pen and you start writing with your right hand while you tap with your left hand. And then all of a sudden in the middle of the assignment, you'll just switch. You'll switch the pen and you start writing with your left hand, and then you tap with your right hand." And he said, you're ambidextrous. Like, you have these abilities with your hands that, yes, you're tapping, you're moving, but you have this independence that is amazing. And I didn't really know what that meant or what it was to be ambidextrous, but he said, "Can you tap your head and rub your belly? Like, can you do that at the same time?" And I could do it. And he said, "No, can you switch?" And I had that ability. And he goes, "Listen, kid, I don't think you're a problem. I just think you're a drummer." And he reached behind his desk and he opened up the top drawer, and he reached inside and he took out my very first pair of drumsticks and put them in my hands and created a moment. I think if you look at your life and really what makes it a great story, it's the moments. We don't remember days in our lives. We remember the moments. And now more than ever, I think really the difference between a life of success versus a life of significance is created in the moments that we experience and the moments that we create for other people. And that was definitely a defining moment in my life that changed everything. And for 25 years, I've had the opportunity to tour and record as a full-time professional drummer. And I've been all over the world and played with amazing artists. My whole college education was paid for with music scholarships. Um, all because of one person who created a moment that focused on what was right with a
Mhm.
kid instead of focusing on what was wrong. And we need that now in this world more than ever, in a world that is constantly reminding us of all of the problems, all of the difficulties, all of the hardship. How do we surround ourselves with people, opportunities, mentorship, guidance, cultures, friends, family members that see what's right, that help us to see the good instead of the difficulties in our lives.
Oh, that's wonderful story. So I want to kind of dissect this because it was interesting when you were speaking about Mr. Jenson. It's almost as if he took time to actually listen to you, but then also to support you in that way that maybe other teachers did not. He saw that opportunity that you had as far as the potential that was within you. And so, as you mentioned, you would go on to perform with, I believe it was Tim McGraw, you've performed for Blue Man Group. But was that moment more than just the music itself? Would it have more symbolism later on in your life?
Yeah, I think it's a testament of just how doing small things over a long period of time creates change. And that was a small little moment. But had I not practiced, had I not kept the drumsticks in my hands, had I not, gotten a drum set, and had I not found other drum mentors and other opportunities and experiences, I mean, that moment could have been for naught. I love the coolest part about that is that he designed that moment. I think sometimes we think that moments are just happenstance or something that just happens by accident at times, but I think some of the most magical moments are designed moments. And he thought that through, and it was totally planned out and thought through. And yes, he saw what was right, but he created a moment that allowed that to blossom in a really cool way.
And, as I had mentioned, you hold many different titles, many different roles. And so, how did you actually get into professional speaking?
I actually never wanted to be a professional speaker. I wanted to be first a helicopter pilot, then I wanted to be a full-time drummer, and I also wanted to have a family. And so being on the road as a full-time drummer was really difficult and really hard. Um, I had an eye disease that ended my whole journey of becoming a helicopter pilot professionally. That was like the ultimate goal as a young child. And then I was going to go blind by the age of 31. And so I lost my medical, wasn't able to fly anymore, ended up going into the medical field. I worked as an orthopedic specialist in that world for uh, almost 6 years, and really kind of was lost. I didn't love what I was doing there, but I spoke in church as a senior in high school. And there was a guy that, as I gave this talk in our church meeting, he came up after, and he owned a leadership consulting company. And he said, "Hey, you did a really good job. I want you to come and speak to a bunch of other high school students down in southern Utah." And I said, "No, I'm good. Like, I don't want to do, like, I'm not a speaker. I don't know what I would say. I'm a high school kid. I don't want to talk to other high school kids." He's like, "I'll pay you $500." And I was like, "Let's do this. Let's go." And I went down and I did this little workshop called "To the Beat of the Drum," and I just taught music principles through drumming and with buckets. And I just felt alive. I felt like I was giving and helping and benefiting others and doing something bigger than myself. And then I had 6 other schools that came up to me after that conference, and they invited me to come and speak at their schools. And so that was how the speaking world began.
No, that's incredible. And actually, Clint, I literally have these right here from the conference.
I love it.
So, for those listeners who are maybe not tuning in through YouTube, Clint has a way of, it's not even just this speaking, but you're able to draw so many different types of emotions through your audience during that time. So, like the excitement of being able to drum alongside others. And like full disclosure, I am not a musician, but that experience was truly remarkable. And then on the other side, when you speak about those individuals who are really impactful in your life, I mean, you really could draw that sense of like, oh my gosh, I think I almost need like a Kleenex for this. And so I really do. I think that makes such a successful speaker because it leaves such a lasting impact. So I'm just curious, like through your journey of professional speaking, how did you develop to get to that point? How did you build up that confidence to get to that point to impact audiences?
It's all about the reps. It's all about the reps. You fail your way to success, and as a young speaker, I wasn't naturally that great, or had a lot to work on. There's a difference between just talking versus speaking professionally, and really taking an audience on a ride where they feel those things, and you do it in an authentic way where um, it's magic on stage. It really is. But there's a principle that I've always loved. It's a Disney principle that they teach at all of the Disney parks. And one of the principles, one of the guiding, I would say a core principle of Disney is a phrase called "never let them see the chords." And if you go to Disney and you ride the Pirates of the Caribbean ride, you never see the chords. You never see the mechanisms. You never see the strings. You never see an electrical outlet. All you see is the magic of that ride. And so as a professional speaker, you get to the point where you don't see the chords, but behind all of that is years of failure and pulling and trial after trial and repeat after repeat and failed attempt after failed attempt, to the point where over that period of time, through those reps, it becomes magical. And you prepare, and my mantra is always to prepare until you're excited. And through putting in those reps, that creates that preparation that allows you to create what you were able to experience that day.
And when you got the audience to bring out the drumsticks, what was the message that you really wanted to convey? You had spoke obviously about a lot of lessons during that time, but was there maybe one thing that really stood out that you wanted the audience to capture in that moment?
I think more than anything, it is the difference between success and significance in your life. In that room, we had a lot of moms, we had a lot of dads, we had families that were there. It wasn't just professionals. And so the message was, how do we live a life that is truly fulfilling? Because at the end of your life, I don't care what you do in this world, none of us are getting out alive. There will be a day when we all leave this world. And I think in that moment, you'll be surrounded by two things. You'll be surrounded by the would-haves and the should-haves and the could-haves in your life, or you'll be surrounded by the do it, did it, done it's. And what is it that you really want to do that has lasting significance in this world, not just success? If you remember, Courtney, I asked everybody to tell me who the last 3 NFL MVPs were, or who were the last 2 Academy Award winners for Best Actor in the world. Who was the last Miss America? And for the most part, nobody knows. Nobody knows. But when I asked them to tell me the name of the Mr. Jenson in their life, the teacher that made a difference in their young life, people remember that. When I asked them to tell me the name of somebody that's helped them through a difficult time in the last month, like, people remember those individuals. Why? Because those people remembered you. And my mantra of all mantras, the thing that I live by the most, and the hope for everybody walking out of that meeting, was to remember that it's not about being the best in the world. It's about being the best for the world. How are you the best mom for your kids? It's not about being the best mom with kids. It's about being the best mom for your kids. How do you become the best manager for your people? Not just the best manager that has X amount of employees. How do you get to the part about other people in a way that they go, I like myself best because I'm with you?
Yeah.
You're someone that helps me live better. You're someone that helps advocate for me to live a better story. And I have found in my life that the greatest amounts of joy, positivity, success, fulfillment, significance, peace is always found in lifting and serving others and helping others to see the possibility. And really, it comes down to, how do you become a Mr. Jenson? That's the core message.
That's fantastic. And another individual that you mention in the book that certainly seems to have played a profound impact on your life was your school counselor, Kirk Young.
Mhm.
And would you be able to maybe just walk the listeners through that conversation and how that would play out as far as the occupation you would choose in that moment, but then also maybe the quote that he provided?
Yep. So Kirk Young was a massive mentor in my life and someone who breathed life into me and helped me to see more than I ever could on my own. And when I got out of college, I kind of chased the money. I chased this career in the medical field that was stable. It had the 401k, the benefits. It looked good on paper. It was going to add stability to having a family and all of the things that are important and so I think honorable to some extent. Um, but at the core, there's a difference between living and just existing. Mark Twain was the person that said there's two important days in a person's life: the day you're born and then the day you figure out why. And a lot of people don't really necessarily sometimes figure out why. You look at the current stat that Gallup just put out, and 87% of working adults hate what they do for a job. And a lot of people spend a lot of time at work. And to have 87% of working adults not find fulfillment in what they do to not just provide, but what they contribute to the world in a large capacity, I found just difficult and hard. And I found myself in that spot out of college. And the quote that Oscar Wilde shared with me, or excuse me, that Kirk shared with me from Oscar Wilde, was the quote that says, "To live is the rarest thing in the world. For most people merely exist, and that is all." Like, to really live, most people just exist. And that quote haunted me every single day in my working profession. And I remember I sat down with two of my dear friends, and they were college grads, successful. And I asked them, I said, "You guys, wouldn't it be crazy if you could find a job that allows you to do three things?" And I call them the three P's: passion, purpose, and the ability to provide. And they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, passion, like, what if you could do something that you innately just loved? Like, if you had 3 hours on a Saturday with nothing to do, you would go do this. At the end of the day of doing this all day long, you wouldn't be so much tired as you are just fulfilled, and it lights you up. You follow this stuff on Instagram. You watch this stuff on YouTube. You just love it. You enjoy it. It fills up your heart." So that's passion. And then purpose is not so much about you as much as it is about you doing something to benefit the world, doing something bigger than yourself. Like, it also had a sense of fulfillment in that you were contributing, you were adding value to the world, you were lifting others, you were needed, and because of your contributions, you found that significance. And then the third part is to provide, and specifically to provide financially in a way that's specific to you. Uh, a lot of people, they might have a job that's full of passion, but they struggle to pay their bills, or they're so stressed about money, or I can't provide for my family, or I'm living paycheck to paycheck. And that's not total happiness and significance either, right? That it's this balance between these three things. And I told my guys, I told my friends, I said, "What if you could find a job? You think that exists, to find a job that allows you to do those three things most of the time?" And my two friends were like, I don't think it exists. I don't think that that's out there. Like, look at a school teacher, you know, fulfilled, passionate, but like they're always looking for extra work. They're looking for extra income. Or look at a doctor. They're stressed, they're tired, they're the malpractice issues, time away from family, but they're making good money. Like, I just don't think, I think you've got to give and take. I don't think you can find one job that allows you to do all three. And my buddy said, "Yeah, what you're asking for is so rare." And it triggered that quote from Oscar Wilde: "To live is the rarest thing in the world. For most people merely exist." And 2 weeks after that conversation, I quit my job and I burned all the ships and I announced it to the world. And I left the medical field and I jumped into the world of professional speaking. And that was a monumental day. And I can truly say now looking back almost 8 years later. And I can say that the day I quit my job was the day I truly started living. Yeah.
My question for you though, like maybe there are individuals out there right now listening to this and they want to take that jump or that leap to really follow their passion or what's in their heart. But like you said, maybe they have a certain level of stability and they don't want to like rock the ship. What could be some advice that you could provide them to have that sense of confidence to go ahead and take that leap into
Yep.
their true passion?
Have you heard, Courtney, the story about Cortez where he burns the ships? Have you ever heard that saying? So Cortez was like an old conqueror back in the day, and he would go to uh, different lands and just conquer the lands. Like would take these armies in, and they would just overtake them, and they were just kind of pirates almost. And there was this one battle that everybody that went to battle this specific land, they always lost. Nobody won. And Cortez goes to battle this undefeated champion, and all of the men are lined up on the beaches, and they're all worried, they're nervous, they've heard the stories. All of them are like, none of us are coming out alive. And he signals to the guys out in the ocean on the ships, all the ships that they came in on, and he lights the ships on fire. He burns the ships, and all of the ships sink in the ocean as these men are just on the beach, about to go to war. And he turns to the men and he goes, we're either going to win or we're going to die. There is no retreat. There is no backup plan. And so I say that as a context to, if someone's thinking about, all right, burning the ships, I'm going to burn the ships of this job so that I can jump in to this other career. How do I fully commit to a new life, a new opportunity? And my thought process in coaching and helping other people through this journey is, how do you bring the ship a little closer to the shore before you burn it? How do you de-risk the experience? How do you create an environment where it's a qualified or really, it's a qualified decision. It's an educated decision. It's supported through mentorship. It's supported by other people that have walked the journey before you. There's a principle that I love. It's called tilling the dirt. Like you get in and you just till the dirt. So say you're not fulfilled where you're at and you're thinking about doing something else. Well, start dabbling in that. Don't just burn the ship and just jump in full steam without a plan. That would be foolish. But de-risk the situation by getting in and just starting to dabble, till the dirt, check it out, join the associations, connect with people that are doing it, start to consume it, watch videos, tutorials. You remember the story about my dad. If you want to be good at wrestling, you got to hang out by the mat. If you want to get good at basketball, you got to hang out by the hoop. If there's something that you want to do, start associating with the people, the hobbies, the associations, the groups, the clubs, the Instagram profiles of people and things that do what you want to do. And over time, you're going to either figure out, all right, this is lighting me up. This is what I need to do. And I can see that vision. I can see that possibility. Or you're going to go, okay, maybe this isn't what I totally thought, or this isn't totally right. And you will get to the point in that journey, either it's not for you, or it will consume you. It will light you up and drive you and move you in a way where you're like, I cannot not do this. And I see the opportunity. I know how this will work, to the point where you go, all right, I'm burning the ship. And then you're walking off that ship and you're stepping onto the beach that's closer, in a path that's been thought out, it's been processed, it's been supported. And I think that just sets you up for success. So that would be my advice in that regard, if you're thinking about doing something like that.
No, absolutely. You know, the image that I get in my mind when I'm thinking about doing something, but I may have a little bit of self-doubt initially, is
Yeah.
this image of a rocking chair. So I kind of fast forward, God willing, I'm 80 years old, able to sit in that rocking chair, but reflecting back on your life. And like you said, just like I would hate to have that sense of regret of not even trying something that was on your heart at a certain point in your life. And so, like, when you speak about, like, if you do take that jump and it does not work out, I think being able to look back in hindsight, you will never be able to regret that you tried it. It may not have worked, but you move forward. But I think it's like almost that fear of regret as well that could really push somebody forward too. But I think that's wonderful advice. And I want to speak about your parents. And you, in the book, you also talk about this idea of development versus advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
And with your parents, could you please like provide that understanding through how they impacted your life through those terms?
Yeah, they're two very different people. My mom has always been a really great developer in my life, always high standards, focusing on progression for us as her children. Were we moving forward? Where my dad was really about advocacy and getting to the part about us and what pulled on our heartstrings. Now, I look back and both were so important. Both were needed, right? You need high standards in your life, and you also need high connection. And one story that I think you're probably referring to is when I was a little kid and I wanted I wanted a drum set, really. And I had been playing the drums for a little while on the pots and pans. And my mom, she, again, being a great developer, I went to her and I said, Mom, I want a drum set. And she goes, No. Have you seen your report card? Like, you change your C's and D's to A's and B's on your report card, and we'll talk about a drum set. And I remember thinking, like, fine, like that's not the answer I was hoping for, but sure. And she's like, you need to do better in school, and then we'll get to the part about you. I'll help you through school, but those are some things that need to change. And my dad heard the same conversation, and he was in the other room, and he said, listen, he pulled me in, and he goes, I heard you were talking to Mom. You want a drum set? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, listen, you got to do better in school, but also while you're doing that, he reaches down to the bottom shelf in his computer room and he pulls out a CD by the band called Rush. And he goes, this drummer, his name is Neil Peart. He will change your life. And he says, take the CD, take it. He goes, listen to him. It will help you as you get ready to get a drum set. It will help you to become a better drummer. And I'm like, yes, this is awesome. And he goes, wait. And then he grabs another CD by the band called Def Leppard. And he said, this drummer is amazing. He doesn't have two arms. He's got one arm, and he shreds on the drums. And I'll never forget, he looked me right in the eyes, and he said, Clint, if you learn how to play Pour Some Sugar on Me, I'll love you forever. And I love that story again, it shows the power of both advocacy and development. My mom needed me to do better in school, but my dad realized that I had a dream. And I think it's important for parents to understand that your kids have dreams. They have wants, they have desires, and it's your job as a parent to get to the part about them. And when we do that, then we can uphold high standards. We can uphold house rules. We can uphold respect and the things that we're striving to develop our children into, which is so important. But again, I believe that no significant loyalty will ever happen without significant connection. And so as a parent, as a leader, as a father, as a husband, as a wife, as a spouse, whatever it is, like, how do you connect with somebody you're making those deposits of trust? I'm getting to the part about you, which shows them that I'm here to advocate. I'm here to walk with you. I'm not here to pull. I'm not here to push you. I'm here to walk with you. And then over time, that allows you to then uphold standards and get to the other things that are also important. But it starts with connection. It starts with advocacy.
Absolutely. For both of the parents to provide you that sense of understanding that, Clint, we see that you do have a desire here, a dream, but then also to hold you up to that standard. I think that's a very good life lesson as you move forward, because you have accomplished so much with all of those titles. But like I said, you had at least the discipline and those standards set in, place at an early age to be able to develop into who you are today. And so I'm just so curious with holding all of those different types of roles, from professional speaking to holding that professional helicopter pilot license, and then also musician. How do you juggle all of those hats, Clint?
Yeah, I would say some days are better than others. For me, it's always been just striving again to follow my heart and to do what I love, but also channeling that love for the benefit of other people. Um, to do what you just love all of the time, I think, is a level of selfishness. But to do what you love in the pursuit of bettering the world is significance, is beautiful. And so for me, um, it comes to, I look at the as I've tried to explain this and think through this in my life. Have you ever been to like a circus or a show and you see those people that they take a stick and then they spin a plate on that stick? Have you ever seen that? And they'll just sit there and they spin these plates, and then they'll like hold it, and then they'll like start spinning another plate, and before you know it, they're spinning like 50 plates. And it's just this constant like balancing act of like, oh my gosh, the plates are going to fall. They are doing too much. It is too busy. It is chaos. And sometimes in my life, it can look like that. And I have all of these different plates spinning, whether it's the speaking plate, it's the drumming plate, it's my family plate, it's my relationship with God plate, it's my helicopter plate. I have all of these different passions and hobbies and interests and loves. And I think the goal for me is when I am with my family, I focus on spinning that plate. That is the plate that I'm spinning. When I'm here with you, Courtney, I'm spinning this plate. I'm not texting. I'm not worried about this. I'm not answering an email. Like, I'm with you. Whoever you are with, give them the gift of your time and your attention. And I think in doing that, it's allowed me to have quality time and to dedicated, specific, memorable, and just prioritized time with those certain entities where you are able to still be a present and a good dad, but I'm also still able to be a safe and effective pilot, and I'm still able to run a successful, significant business that provides for my family. And so when I'm on the road and I'm on stage, I'm there and I'm spinning that plate. And when I'm at church, I'm spinning that plate. And when I'm playing the drums, I'm spinning that plate. And so over time, you just have to watch and make sure that none of those plates are going to fall. And so I think it's also an awareness of, all right, I need to get over there and I need to spin the business plate. That's really important right now. And you know what? I need to go and I need to spin the plate with Kelly, and we need to go on a date and we need to go spend time together. Like, I got to spin that plate. And so I think it's the awareness of knowing that, okay, this plate's been spun. Cool. I can jump over to this other plate. And that dance between all of those things, I think, has helped um, to live a life of total fulfillment, where it's still, again, passion, purpose, and the ability to provide. So yeah, the principle of the plates.
That is such a good analogy, just to hear that and look at each part of your life, career, family. That ability to balance today is very difficult because, like you said, I mean, there's always something we could be doing. We're all multitasking, we're all very busy. But that idea, when you were talking about presence, like being present in that moment, I think is so valuable today. I mean, when you talk about being a parent, but being there with children, I could at least recall back in my childhood, there was nothing more memorable now that I'm able to reflect back, but my father being present, being there with the child. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then when you talk about even like into your career, but being focused on each and every one of those roles. And when you do have to, when you get a little bit off balance to be able to, spin the other plate, I really like that because not only do you hold these roles, but you tremendously excel at each of these roles within your career. And so just over time, how were you able to perfect each of those roles?
Yeah, I would say I've been a constant proponent of staying in rookie mode, is what I call it. I'm always learning, and so the role of fatherhood I have not perfected. The role of helicopter flying I have not perfected. The role of drumming I have not perfected. I look at it as it's a dance of. I think that's why I love like flying, for example. When you take off in a helicopter, you're either going to land or you're going to crash and die. Those are the two options. It can be very stressful at times, right? And if you're flying in bad weather or something happens, or you're putting yourself into that world where it demands excellence. When I go on stage, it's the same thing. When I get out there and they go, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Clint Pulver, all of that moment of preparation is gone. It's now time to get up and to press play and to deliver excellence. Same thing when I walk home from being gone on tour. Like I'm there and I get home and it's time to deliver excellence. And so there's almost these different roles and these different times where it might look like it's perfection, but it's in the pursuit of just striving to give my all. It's striving to do it right and to do it really well. And yeah, I don't succeed always. I mean, I remember as a pilot, I wanted to fly and I failed my check ride to get my private license to fly airplanes. And I failed during a simulated engine failure where they pull the engine and I made a bunch of wrong decisions. And if that simulation would have been for real, we would have crashed and we would have died, hands down. And I remember getting out of the airplane that day. My parents, everybody was there. This was back when I was a senior in high school. They had this sign that said the world's newest pilot. And I was so embarrassed. I had tears in my eyes. I walked up to my family and I said, like, I failed. I didn't pass my check ride. And I remember my mom looking at me, and it is somewhat cliche, but I loved what she said. She said, you can let this moment make you bitter, or you can let this moment make you better. And I hit the books harder than ever, and that DPE, the examiner, allowed me to retest, and I passed. I got my wings, and I became a pilot. But the craziest part of the whole story, Courtney, was 2 months after I got my license. Me and one of my best friends, we went up and we just went for a flight around the valley, and all of a sudden, the engine of the aircraft just started to shake. And it started to sputter, and all of a sudden, the engine failed. And the prop was spinning, and all of a sudden, it just came to a complete stop. And my friend starts freaking out. And I remember in that moment being so calm, knowing exactly what I needed to do because I failed. I was able to deliver excellence in that moment because of all of the failures, because of the imperfect moments. But because I stayed in rookie mode, because I was striving to continually keep learning, I knew exactly what I needed to do. And we were at a height and an altitude where we were able to make it back to the runway. I knew the calculations, I knew the wind speed, I knew everything that I needed to do because of that failure. And we landed that plane safely on that runway. And I believe I'm alive to this day because of that failure. And so what might seem like excellence or excelling in all of these different areas of my life is actually just a culmination of a lot of failures that have taught me how to perform at a higher level. And so I think it's important to remember that you fail your way to success in your life, and that failure is a part of it, and to embrace that, stay in rookie mode, and to just keep moving forward. That's all I do.
I agree with you when you talk about how we learn so much from our failures than in comparison to our successes, because it's easy when, you get the pat on the back, the trophy, but you're right. You really do learn from those failures. And of course, just even that character development too. Like it truly builds character. Like you said, you went back to those books, you studied even harder, you were more determined than ever. And then ultimately, it actually literally it paid off to save your life. And so that's profound when you think about the impact as to what that failure had in your life. And so thank you so much for sharing that, because I cannot even imagine what that would have been like you said, to be that calm in that moment. And it was from that preparation and ironically that failure to
Totally.
get you to that moment. So Clint, I don't want to leave this conversation without talking about the main part of this book, which is of course the Undercover Millennial program.
Yeah, the Undercover Millennial program was a massive feat that took many, many years to accomplish. I'm a millennial. That's the generation I was born in. And so I was young enough at the time to be able to go into organizations as a young person looking for a job. And I would literally dress how I'm dressed today. I'd have a shirt on, a backwards hat, a hoodie, just general street clothes. And I would walk into a restaurant. I'd walk into a medical facility, a clinic, a construction site, as someone who was just looking for a job. And I would say, hey, I'm looking for employment. What's it like to work here? And the employees would kind of look around, and then they would tell me everything. They would tell me what they loved. They would tell me what they hated. Because I wasn't an employee survey. I wasn't a manager talking to them. I was a potential hire. And in doing all of this, it created a unique dynamic where I was able to capture the hidden truths, the realities behind what many bosses never saw, that many leaders never get to see. Because there's not a lot of incentive for an employee, especially when things aren't going right, to look at a boss and to say, hey, like, you're horrible. And I can't stand you. And you micromanage everything that we do. You constantly take all of the credit for every success that we have. Like, we love you, Doug. You're awesome. Like, nobody's going to tell you that. They're going to leave. They'll leave the place that they work at. They'll leave you as the boss, or worse, they mentally check out and then they stay. And it creates this dynamic where you see so many bosses that are like, nobody wants to work these days. Like, kids don't want to work. The younger generation, they're entitled. Like, no. Maybe the question is, do they want to work for you? Like, you are the leader, and you impact so much of the culture, the possibility, the hope, the ability of really what I believe creates the best moms and the best dads, because so much of your work determines how you are impacted as a parent, as a spouse, as a partner. And I believe that if we create better bosses, we create better families, we create better stories in this world. And so that was the beginning of how that was born. And we've done over 350 organizations, and I've interviewed over 11,000 employees undercover. And it was the largest research study that's ever been done in its kind. And we wrote a book about it. And I'll never do that again. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. But it's the book that you showed and have read, Courtney, and it's called I Love It Here. Because that was the coolest part of all of the research, is when an employee would say, I love it here. I love my job. I love what I do. I love my boss. I love my team. I love what I get to give. I love this opportunity. Why? Like, what? Like, in all jobs, it doesn't matter what it was, I would find that dynamic. And it was amazing to see and hear the stories of the leaders behind that phrase and what they were doing to create a dynamic that people never wanted to leave.
I loved the part when you were speaking about, you highlight like the 5 C's of mentorship,
Yep.
but then it was that concept of the mentor manager. And I was just curious if you could just go into a little bit of detail what that mentor manager was, because that really was such a highlight of the book.
Yeah. So the mentor manager was the individual that people chose. It's where you didn't become the leader. You weren't the boss. You were the person that when people were with you, they said, I like myself best. That individual, they possessed those 5 C's. They were confident, they were credible, they were competent, they were candid, but they also cared. They became the advocate in the story. And I think what's really cool is with mentorship, you can't become the mentor until the mentee invites you into their heart. And these were people that understood the hearts and the desires and the dreams of the people that they served. And all they did is they got to that part. And they said, I want to walk with you to make that possible. And they truly meant it. And they were authentic in that regard. And people buy into that. People trust that. People choose that. And when you could become that person, then we could uphold high standards for profitability and for growth and development and high performance and engagement, all the other things that we need in the business world. Same thing applies to parenting. But when you become the advocate in the story, when you become that person that people choose, the mentor, then that was the highest form of loyalty and significance and engagement that was created in the workplace.
This particular book, I found that it was not only for like leaders and managers and executives too, but it's even for those even just starting their career, maybe desiring one day to be that leader. I took so many notes within it, like you said. Just those 5 C's, the importance of mentorship. And even as I reflect throughout my career, my professional career, you're right. It was those managers who not only just taught you about the, like, for example, I was in medical sales, pharmaceutical sales,
Yep.
but those managers who took the time to actually teach you about the big picture. So it wasn't just the product that you were, of course, selling, but that they taught you about the industry and they taught you just life lessons, and that I would carry on because I was young at the time. But I just think that idea of the mentor manager was just such a powerful concept that you highlight, of course, in the book. But Clint, let's round it out. This has been an incredible podcast episode, but do you have any, like, a positive quote or a positive phrase that you would like to leave our community with today?
I would maybe just echo what I said earlier, that again, it's not about being the best in the world. It's about being the best for the world. And just that chance that every day to live in the pursuit of trying to make this world a better place is a really cool way to live. And I don't know, that just the opportunity to, again, when you figure out what you're supposed to do in this world, and you wake up every day going, I'm right where I need to be. My hope is that everybody gets to feel that. And if you don't feel that right now, then keep striving for that. Take an inventory. So many people live a life by default and they don't live a life by design. When's the last time, this is maybe what I would end with today. When is the last time you gave yourself permission to dream? A lot of people we don't dream enough while we're awake, right? When we dream when we're sleeping. Like, when's the last time you dreamed while you were awake? You really took the time to go, all right, I don't know. Tomorrow's never promised. I don't know how much time I have, but this is what I want to do. This is what I want to be. This is what I want to feel. This is what I want to experience. This is what I want to contribute to this world. And do it. You hold the pen. You hold the pen, and you are the author of your story. And so if you're not where you want to be, pick up the pen and start to write a different story. Little by little, we make a lot. Like, it's those little moments, little by little. Like, write the pen just today. Like, just start to dream a little. And then tomorrow, dream a little bit more. And over time, little by little, those efforts, those moments, they can add up to be a lot. And so take some time to dream.
Oh, thank you so much for that, Clint. And, it reminds me of embodying that childlike imagination where you're not so worried about what everyone else thinks. Like, you just go for literally like what's in your heart. So I really do. I appreciate that advice. And Clint, it has been an absolute honor to have you on this podcast. Like I said, just going through just those life lessons that you have learned, like I said, just excelling in each of those roles that I spoke about, of course, from the very beginning in that intro. So I'm just so grateful for all those life lessons that you've been able to share with our listeners. So thank you, Clint.
You're very welcome. My pleasure.